The icy pool water pierced like countless fine steel needles, drilling along the pores into the gaps between the bones. I suddenly opened my eyes, and my gaze shifted from the blurred green algae at the bottom of the pool to the swaying figure above. Mom, why aren't you coming up yet? Stop pretending. The water isn't even deep. Standing on the shore was Lu Xiang, my adopted son for 8 years, a 10-year-old boy. His face wore a look of disdain after getting away with mischief. In his hand he still held the limited edition drone I had bought for him with a month's salary, bait he had just deliberately tossed into the water to lure me into going in after it. This scene, I will remember until my death. In my previous life, to avoid frightening Lu Xiang, I stubbornly held back the cramping leg to lift the drone above the water, which left me with lifelong asthma. When my nominal husband Lu Changping came, he believed Lu Xiang's biased complaint and blamed me for accidentally breaking the child's toy, even accusing me of bringing it on myself. In that life, I worked hard to support 2 ingrateful wolves studying abroad. But once Lu Changping made his fortune, he turned around and brought back his first love, leaving me to leave the household with nothing, claiming that I was aging and cannot be taken away. Jianghe, who are you performing this for? Hurry up and climb up. Don't delay Xiang's afternoon tennis class. Lu Qingping's familiar, cold voice rang out from the shore. I watched the face reflected on the surface of the water, 28 years old, with none of the fine lines that come from overwork around the corners of the eyes yet. The skin was still fairly tight, but the eyes carried a weariness of life that had been worn down. In my previous life, this face would rapidly age 3 years later, and by less than 40 would resemble a woman in her 50s. I didn't speak, only followed the convulsive force, letting my body sink slowly beneath the water. My hand slid weakly twice, then I squeezed out half of the remaining air in my lungs, creating a string of desperate bubbles. Glub, glub. I closed my eyes and let the water flow into my ears. I know Lu Changping too well. What he cares about most is his reputation. If something were to really happen under his nose, that so-called Confucian merchant name of his would be ruined. He is a refined egoist who would never let himself be branded as having driven his wife to death. On the shore, Lu Qingping's voice finally changed tone. Xiang, didn't you say the water is shallow? I don't know. She was clearly moving just a moment ago. With a splash, Lu Changping jumped down. When his 2 hypocritical hands grabbed my arm and dragged me ashore, I deliberately coughed violently, spewing out a few mouthfuls of dirty water. My face as pale as paper. I closed my eyes and listened to Lu Xiang muttering softly beside me. It must be an act. He does so much work all the time and nothing ever happens. But a little water will kill him. If it were before, I would explain with frost in my heart, even blame myself for not taking care of his emotions. But now, I just want to laugh. Doctor, call a doctor. I weakly grabbed Lu Qingping's suit sleeve, nails digging into his flesh, leaving deep red crescent marks. My heart hurts. All right, go back to the room and change clothes first. Lu Chang frowned, his brows knitted tight, his eyes devoid of any mercy, filled only with impatience at the disrupted schedule. I returned to the villa that looked luxurious, but in fact I didn't even have the right to hire a nanny, and I directly collapsed onto the big bed in the master bedroom. The sheets were the ones I had just changed last week, carrying the scent of lavender laundry detergent. On the nightstand there was a family portrait, Lu Changping hugging Lu Xiang and Lu Zixin. I stood at the very edge, smiling with a restrained and humble awkwardness. Lu Changping pushed the door open and looked down at me from a height. Xiang said you slipped and fell on your own. Jianghe, have you been too tired lately? How about you skip the dinner party tonight, just when Baiya is taking her child back to China? I want to invite her to a meal since we're old classmates. Baiya, this name is like a slick venomous snake. He is Lu Qingping's first love, and the opponent who forced me to jump off a building in a past life. She returns to the country with 3 freeloaders, and Lu Changping, to flaunt his wealth and generosity, not only wants to drive me away but also to use my savings to support her child. Fine, I won't go. I pulled the blanket, my voice hoarse. I'm sick and need to stay in bed to rest. Not only will I skip tonight's meal, But I won't be able to do the housework for the next half-month either. Lu Changping froze. 3 years into our marriage, I am like a precision machine running year-round. Not only keeping the home spotless but also taking care of his 2 children from his previous marriage. He has never heard me say a single no. Who will bring Xiang and Zixin? Zixin has to go to an Olympiad math class tomorrow too, he asked, naturally questioning. You are their real father. You take care of them. I rolled onto my side. Back to him. Or hire a nurse. If President Liu can't bear that little money, let your old classmate help out. Isn't she quite experienced at taking care of kids? Lu Changping choked on his words, then snorted coldly after a moment. Jianghe, don't use these words to needle me. If you're sick, just rest properly. Let's see how long you can keep stirring up trouble. He slammed the door and left, hearing Lu Xiang downstairs cursing me for being lazy, and Lu Qingping's flustered rummaging for socks. I curled my lips in a cold, disdainful smile. Lu Qingping, do you think taking care of 2 kids is just a matter of talking? Do you think Baiya came back to China to rekindle old flames with you? She came to you, a gullible dupe, with a bunch of debt on her. In this life, I will not only reclaim what should belong to me, but also personally send you and this pair of true love to hell. I stood up and walked to the dressing table, looking at myself in the mirror, though exhausted. Still young, I opened the hidden drawer and pulled out the contracts for those several abandoned plots that Lu Changping had been using to evade taxes under my name. Over the past 2 years, the pages have turned somewhat yellow. The dense clauses are headache-inducing, but my signature in the bottom right corner is clearly visible, in the memories of his past life. In 3 more months these plots of land would skyrocket in value 100-fold due to the changes in the city subcenter planning. But now, Lu Qingping is rushing to swap these garbage assets for cash to buy a villa for Baiya. He wants me to leave everything behind. I let out a cold laugh and dialed the number of a law firm. Hello, is this lawyer Zhang? I want to ask about property preservation in an amicable divorce. Yes. My demand isn't high. I only want those few worthless pieces of barren land. On the other end of the line, lawyer Zhang seemed somewhat surprised. In this day and age, few women proactively request a divorce, and even fewer want only the desolate land, and not the property when divorcing. He verified twice before finally agreeing to help me draft the agreement. Hanging up the phone, I leaned against the bedhead and began recalling every key moment from my past life. The reason Lu Qingping's company could grow big was because he had accumulated several pieces of land at low prices in his early years. Among them, the largest one was the old warehouse site in the southern suburbs that my parents bought with money from moving out of the old house. In the previous life, a week before the plan was announced, he transferred this land at a low price to a shell company under Baiya's name, and then Baiya sold it to developers, making a huge profit. And at that time, I had already been kicked out, unable to drink a mouthful of soup. In this life, I will keep this land firmly in my own hands. I was sick for an entire week. This week, the house has been in a total mess. Lu Changping never thought that everything, 3 dishes and a soup that appear on the dining table on time every day, the neatly ironed shirts, and the 2 children's crowded after-school classes, could all be shouldered by me alone. Jianghe, where are Zixin's Latin dance shoes? She's about to take her exam. Lu Changping pushed open the bedroom door forcefully, his tie skewed to the side, his face full of anxiety. I leaned against the headboard, flipping through a financial magazine, not lifting my head. In the 3rd cabinet of the storage closet, the bottom shelf, or she herself threw it somewhere in the foyer. I'm dizzy. You look for it yourself. Until when do you plan to make a fuss? He lowered his voice, his tone laced with a smug anger. Isn't it just getting water? I've reimbursed your medical bills and bought supplements. Now you don't even cook. And the child eats takeout every day until they're sick of it. I put down the book and looked at him calmly. Lu Changping, the doctor said I have myocardial strain triggered by a lung infection and need to rest. If you think I'm this free nanny isn't useful, you can find someone else. His breathing paused, clearly surprised by the suggestion of finding someone else. In his eyes, a woman like me with no background, A full-time housewife would not survive without him. At that moment, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his expression instantly softened, even showing a hint of an almost imperceptible humiliation. He turned and walked out of the room, lowering his voice to answer at the end of the corridor. Yaya, have you settled back in the country? What? The child has a fever. Don't worry, I'll be there right away. I watched his hurried figure leave with a cold, distant gaze. Baya has returned, with her 3 ill-gotten gold bumps of a father. She comes to repay her old classmate. In the evening, Lu Chengping, for once, brings back a bouquet of flowers and also carries a box of premium bird's nest. Jianghe, let's talk. He sits at the edge of the bed, his tone unusually gentle. But beneath this gentleness lies calculation. Baya's situation is quite difficult. Her husband owed debts abroad and ran away. She's alone with 3 kids, starting a business back in the country, with nowhere to live. I'm thinking, those several plots of barren land in the south suburb and that old warehouse, they're just sitting there paying taxes anyway. Why not transfer them to her name and have her take out a mortgage loan? Consider it me lending to her. I sneer in my heart. Those plots of land were nominally wasteland, but in fact I bought them during the early days of his startup with the compensation from my parents' old house demolition. Now he wants to win with nothing and give his white moonlight to him. I pretend to ponder, and after a long while I finally speak slowly. Lu Chengping, you know what kind of person Baya is. If this money is lent out, it may never come back. And although those plots aren't valuable now, they're also my only guarantee. Aren't you convinced yet? After this deal with the company is completed, I'll trade you a residence in the city center. He griped my hand in a desperate hurry, and the sweat on his palm nauseated me. I pulled my hand back and went along with the flow. Since you want to help her so badly, I can't stop you, but my body really can't endure it any longer. Xiang and Zixin are grown, and as my stepmother there's always a wall between us. How about this? Let's divorce. Divorce. He stood up abruptly. His first reaction was not to plead but to be wary. You want to split the company? The shares are your premarital assets. I don't want them. I looked straight into his eyes, enunciating clearly. I only want the handful of barren land and the old warehouse in the southern suburb. Those were bought with my dowry money. They belong to me. All the remaining properties, cars, and savings should be left to you and the child. I am going out clean, giving Baya a place. Lu Chengping was stunned. He probably ran a quick calculation in his mind. The southern suburb is so remote that not even birds would stop there. Besides paying land transfer fees and maintenance, it's worthless. The properties in the city, along with savings and shares, are worth tens of millions. Are you sure? He probed. Jianghe, once you're divorced, you'll have nothing. I just want peace. I lowered my gaze, hiding the irony beneath my eyes. He's afraid I'll back out. The next morning he had the lawyer draft the divorce agreement, in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau. He even offered to open the car door for me, fearing this great Saint Mother would suddenly come to her senses. Jianghe, although divorced, you can still come to me if you have difficulties in the future. He held the divorce certificate, looking relieved. No need. I put away my credentials and turned to look across the street. There, Baya was leading 3 mischievous children, all eyes on this side, watching eagerly. The 3 kids had been fighting over an ice cream by the roadside, the older one pushing the younger crying loudly on the ground. Baya looked haggard, nowhere near the elegance of the campus belle she used to be. Lu Chengping saw Baya and his eyes lit up. He couldn't even wait to say goodbye to me before running over. I stood on the steps, watching him pick up Baya's most rambunctious younger son with one arm, smiling with a fatherly gentleness. And my stepson Lu Xiang and my stepdaughter Lu Zixin stood not far away, shooting hostile glances at Baya's 3 children, 5 children, 2 adults, a room full of hypocritical wolves and 3 freeloaders, plus a fake man who is determined to be the savior. Lu Chengping, you think you've embraced true love, but you've actually held on to an abyss of debt. I turn and stride toward the eagerly waiting taxi, take out my phone, and call lawyer Zhang. Have the land transfer procedures been completed? Good. Contact Lin Zong of Yunchuan Capital immediately, and tell him that the old warehouse site in my possession is precisely the only gap in their logistics center's site selection. In the previous life, Lu Changping rose to wealth on the demolition money from these plots. In this life, I will ensure she touches not a single cent of that sky-high fortune. On the third day after obtaining the divorce certificate, I moved out of the Lu family's villa that exuded a suffocating atmosphere. I only took one suitcase and those several yellowed land titles. Lu Changping was urgent to move Baya and his 3 children in. Not willing to delay even one more day, Lu Xiang and Lu Zixin were busy fighting Baya's 3 children for rooms. And the whole house was as noisy as a veggie market. Aunt Jiang, if you have nowhere to live, you can return to the rural hometown. Lu Xiang hugged his game console, his eyes full of malice. Aunt Bai said she would buy us the newest computer models. Unlike you, who only makes us do homework. I ignored this spoiled child and walked straight out the door. I took a taxi to the southern suburb. It is now a wasteland, with collapsed walls and waist-high weeds everywhere. The autumn wind blows, the dry grass rustles, and in the distance a few wild dogs rummage through a landfill for food. But in my memory, 2 weeks later, the Municipal Planning Bureau would announce the final site selection for the intercity logistics hub, and the old warehouse beneath my feet, nicknamed the garbage dump, happened to be at the center of the planning red line. I walked into a very rudimentary cafe. As I pushed the door open, a young man sitting in the corner, wearing a shirt washed to an almost white and frowning at his notebook computer, looked up. Lin Yunshan, the future founder of Cloud Innovation Capital. At this moment, he was facing the biggest funding crisis since starting his business because the site selection for the logistics park was blocked. Mr. Lin, you're looking for the owner of this land in the southern suburb. I sat opposite him and directly pushed the land deed toward him. Making my intention clear, Lin Yunshan raised his head, his eyes sharp with a sense of being pushed into a corner. Who are you? How did you know I was looking for this piece of land? I don't matter who I am. What's important is that this piece of land now belongs to me personally. I looked at him calmly. I know Yunchuan wants this land as the throat of the logistics transfer hub. If I don't sign, your entire closed loop won't work. Lin Yunshan closed his laptop, leaned forward, and spoke with a probing tone. Mrs. Lu. No. I heard you just got divorced. Ms. Jiang. Since you came prepared, name your price. But I must remind you that this land currently isn't valued highly in the eyes of the appraisal agency. I won't sell. Lin Yunshan's eyes grew cold, just as he was about to stand up. I continued, I want to take a stake. With this piece of land plus 3 million in cash, I will own 20% of Yunchuan's shares. Additionally, I allow you to use this land first. Lin Yunshan froze, then let out a cold laugh. 3 million. Ms. Jiang. As far as I know, you walked out with nothing but this useless piece of land. Where did the money come from? I took out an equity pledge agreement from my bag. Lu Qingping's company is recently bidding on a project in the north of the city and urgently needs cash flow. In order to divorce smoothly and obtain the villa in the city center, he pledged her original bone fracture price from a logistics company to me. As long as I sign today to transfer it to his rival, 3 million will be credited within half an hour. This was the hook I buried before my divorce. Lu Changping thought he had the upper hand, but he forgot that the competitor of that logistics company was desperate to find a breakthrough. Lin Yunshan's eyes scanned the property certificate and the pledge agreement repeatedly. He was a smart man, and with one glance he saw that I wasn't bluffing. Deal. He held out his hand, and there was a touch more respect in his gaze. But I want to know, why are you confident in Yunchuan? Now everyone thinks the southern suburb is a dead end. Because I believe the wind is about to change. I held his hand, my tone calm. That same night the agreement was signed. Lu Changping called me, his voice carrying an undisguised pride. Jianghe, Baiya said, she would like to treat you to a meal tomorrow. After all, she has moved into your room now, and she feels a bit guilty about it. By the way, inform you that I just sorted out all the follow-up tax procedures for those parcels in the southern suburb, so you better not regret not taking the house in the city center. Congratulations, Mr. Lu. I held the phone, standing at the windy edge of the southern suburbs wasteland, looking at the lights of the bustling city in the distance. I hope you and Baya can live long in that house. Hang up the phone. I saw a text message from Lin Yunshin's secretary. Mr. Jiang, the procedures have been completed. Meanwhile, my phone pushed a breaking news alert. The plan for the suburban logistics hub in this city has officially landed, and land prices in the surrounding areas are expected to experience explosive growth. I know that from this moment on. The wasteland in Lu Qingping's eyes has become a gold mine he could never afford in his life, and at this moment, he is probably busy paying the expensive tuition for Baya and the 3 children for private school. The real show has just begun. News of the southern suburb plan taking root struck like a heavy bomb, disrupting the tranquility within the circle and completely shattering Lu Qingping's composure. At this moment I am sitting in the new office building of Yunchuan Capital. Opposite me is Lin Yunshin, radiant and vigorous. In just half a month, he has successfully secured over 100 million in the first round of funding for that piece of land, while the equity value in my hand has risen by more than tenfold. You're too sharp, General Jiang. Your vision is frighteningly accurate. Lin Yunshin handed me a new strategic cooperation document, his tone full of sincerity. I was about to speak when my phone started buzzing wildly. The screen flashed the characters, Lu Qingping, in bold. As if about to shake the phone apart, I slid to answer, and before I could speak, Lu Qingping's nearly roaring voice came through. Jiang He, have you known all along that the southern suburb was going to be planned? Did you deliberately induce me to divorce? Deliberately want that piece of land? Is that it? General Lu, you signed the divorce agreement yourself. When you said that piece of land was junk assets and was taking up your cash flow, you were begging me to take it away, not with this tone. I picked up the coffee and spoke in a calm, unruffled voice. You are committing fraud. I will sue you. Suit yourself, I sneer. But before suing, let's first look at the risk assumed clause in the agreement. By the way, I heard you mortgaged 2 more houses to raise sponsorship funds for Baya's 3 children to attend the prestigious school. It seems President Liu is really tight on cash lately. Before he finished scolding, I hung up the phone. At this moment, the Liu family probably has long since become a human hell. As I expected, Lu Qingping is standing in the center of the living room at this moment, with a mess beneath his feet. Baya's 3 children are wildly jumping on the sofa, tearing the expensive genuine leather sofa apart. The oldest even peed in Lu Qingping's most cherished antique vase. Lu Qingping, what are you yelling for? Baya's sharp voice pierced through the ceiling. You yourself said at the beginning that Jiang He was an idiot and only wanted some lousy land. Now the land price has risen. Who do you blame? If you have the guts, go take it back. If my son's tuition for tomorrow can't be paid, I'll take them back to our hometown. Back to our hometown. I drove you back here and even drove Jiang He away for you. And now you tell me to go back to our hometown. Lu Qingping's eyes were red, like a trapped beast. He not only has to face Baya's demands but also the treachery of Lu Xiang and Lu Zixin. The 2 children have grown used to my careful care, and now Baya hardly ever comes into the kitchen, instead ordering them cheap takeout every day. Lu Zixin's Latin dance level assessment was missed directly because there was no one to take him to the training class. Lu Xiang was called by teachers countless times about his fights with Baya's child at school, and his parents were summoned repeatedly. I don't want this woman to be my mom. She stole my New Year money to buy toys for her son. Lu Xiang's cries echoed through the room. This scene was my daily life in the previous world, and now it has become Lu Qingping's nightmare. A week later, the city's most prestigious charity gala. I changed into a sharply cut dark red gown, and with Lin Yunshin's arm in mine, I appeared at the venue. As a founding shareholder of Yunchuan Capital, my presence caused quite a stir. Lu Qingping had only gotten in by pulling strings to obtain an entry ticket. He had originally planned to seize this opportunity to find a few investors to help out. But the moment he saw me, his whole body froze in place. He looked at me, his eyes filled with disbelief, regret, and a nearly mad craving. Jiang he pushed aside the person blocking his way, staggered up to me, his voice hoarse. Jiang He, can we talk? It was my confusion before. It was that bitch Baya who lured me. Xiang and Zixing cry for you every day. After all, you raised them. I turned around, politely keeping social distance, my eyes showing courteous aloofness. Sir, do you have an appointment? If not, please don't disturb my conversation with my partner. Jianghe, stop pretending. He lowered his voice, a beggar's tone in it. I know you still have me in your heart. If you agree to transfer part of the equity of the Nanjiao plot to me to help me get through this difficulty, I will cut ties with Baya immediately, and we can remarry. Okay. I looked at her face, swollen from anxiety and excess desire, and suddenly felt that my past self had been terribly wrong. Mr. Liu, I think you must have misunderstood. I leaned close to his ear, speaking softly in a voice only the two of us could hear. From the day I fell into the water, I have already had no heart. As for your true love and those 5 children, may you all grow old together and never part. At that moment, Baya surprisingly appeared out of nowhere. She wore an out-of-season formal dress and rushed forward to grab my hair. Jianghe, you vixen, stay away from my husband. The security guards quickly stepped in to subdue her. Under everyone's gaze, Baya threw a tantrum, and Lu Qingping's face went pale. The city's business elites watched this. True love. As if watching a circus, I elegantly glided past them, heading toward the spotlight in the center of the banquet hall. Lu Qingping, this is just the beginning. The 8 years you owe me, I want you to repay with the rest of your life. The farce at the banquet became the talk of the circle for half a month, and Lu Qingping's bankruptcy happened faster than I imagined. The project he bid for in the northern part of the city collapsed entirely when the funding chain broke, and bank demand letters flooded into his office like snowflakes. To fill the gap, he stopped Whiteya from selling the last set of his own house, but it was still a drop in the bucket. That afternoon, after I had just signed a new round of investment agreements at the board meeting of Yunchuan Capital, I went downstairs and saw Lu Qingping waiting at the company entrance. He curled up beside the steps, his suit creased into a mess, the once meticulously groomed hairstyle now a tangled disaster, and he clutched a worn thermos cup tightly in his hand. Jianghe, no, President Jiang. When he saw me come out, he stood up abruptly, and because he rose too quickly he staggered a bit. His voice was humble to the core. I know you're very busy right now. I beg you, give me 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. I signaled the bodyguards to step back, and stood about 3 meters away from him with a calm expression. Lu Qingping, if it's just for borrowing money, you don't need to speak. No, it's not about borrowing money. He hurriedly opened the insulated cup, and inside were a few pieces of charred red braised pork. This is something I made myself. You used to love this dish the most. Jianghe, I really regret it. Baya, that woman, went crazy. She stole all my watches and sold them, and she's dragging those 3 kids around outside, in debt up to their necks. The creditors are blocking my doorstep every day now. Xiao is so scared he won't go to school anymore. I lowered my gaze to glance at that box of meat that looked miserable in appearance. In my previous life, I learned to cook this dish because she loved it, and the back of my hand was covered in blisters from hot oil splashing, while he was busy chatting with Baya and didn't even look at me. The meat you made, you keep for yourself to eat. I looked calmly into the distance. As for Baya, wasn't it your own choice? You say she's carrying a child. It's not easy. You say she is your soulmate. That was me being blind. He suddenly slapped himself. The crackling sound clear. Jianghe, Xiang is sick. Acute appendicitis. He's in the hospital. I can't even scrape together the surgical fees. For the sake of you having raised him for 8 years, can you? Lu Qingping, don't use the child as a shield. I interrupted him, my tone cooling. When we divorced, I didn't take a single cent. All our savings were left to you. That money is enough for 2 children to live until they are adults. Whoever you spend the money on, that person should be responsible. At that moment, a shabby van roared to a stop by the roadside. Baya dashed down from the car with her hair in a mess, and 3 predatory loan sharks trailing behind her. Lu Qingping, you really came here to find this bitch. Baya's voice was sharp and harsh. She rushed forward heedlessly, trying to grab Lu Qingping's clothes. Where did you hide the money from selling the house? That money has to go to my son to repay the debt. Those people said, if you don't return the money, they'll cut off my son's hands. Lu Qingbing frightenedly pushed her away. That is Xiang's life-saving money. He is waiting for surgery at the hospital. Can't worry about all that now. If my son runs into trouble, I'll fight you to the death. White Ya, like a madwoman, fought with Lu Qingbing. The three enforcers, seeing this, stepped forward and kicked over Lu Qingbing's thermos. The scorched, burnt meat rolled everywhere, covered in dust. One of them ransacked Lu Qingbing's pockets viciously, finally finding a few scattered banknotes, and spit contemptuously. I watched this mess with a cold eye. The once high-spirited, Confucian businessman, and the once gentle and charming, campus belle, are in front of the CBD building in the city center, tearing at each other like two wild dogs fighting over food, with no dignity left. Jianghe, save me, help me. Lu Changping crawls toward me on the ground, his eyes filled with despair. I take a step back, avoiding his filthy hands, and softly say to him, Lu Changping, do you know? Actually, you could have avoided becoming like this. If only you had a little bit of conscience back then, even just a little, you would still be sitting in your chief executive office right now. He froze, staring at me blankly. President Lin. Let's go. I turned around and walked toward the waiting luxury car. Lin Yunshan thoughtfully closed the car door for me. As the window slowly rose, I saw Bai Ye biting hard into his arm in a bid to snatch one last ring from Lu Qingbing's hand. And those three thugs were curse-filled as they dragged them onto the car. This is karma. Not because I did something monstrous, but because I withdrew all protection, letting them wither and perish in their greed and selfish nature. The car drove away smoothly. I pulled out my phone and saw a message from the lawyer. Mr. Jiang, the assets of Lu Qingbing's company have entered the judicial auction process. We have acquired that core subsidiary at a low price. Now she has truly walked away with nothing. 3 months later, Yuanchuang Capital officially rang the bell at the Hong Kong Stock Exchange for its listing. I stood in the center of the lobby in a sharply tailored pure white suit, the champagne in my hand reflecting the dazzling lights all around. The green numbers flashing on the screen indicated that my net worth had risen to the top among the city's female entrepreneurs. Mr. Jiang, congratulations. Lin Yunshan raised his glass and approached, his gaze lacking a bit of the sharp edge from the business world, but with more genuine admiration. From that wasteland in the southern suburbs to today's bell-ringing scene, you did it in less than a year. This is absolutely a miracle in business history. I clinked glasses with him softly, smiling lightheartedly. Just good luck. I merely rode the wave of the era. During the celebration banquet, halfway through, my assistant Xiaobu came to my side and spoke in a lowered voice. Mr. Jiang, there's a girl named Lu Zixin outside who wants to see you. The security guards can't stop her. She's been standing in the rain for an hour. The hand holding the wine glass paused slightly. Then I calmly set the glass down. Tell her to wait for me in the side door lounge. In the lounge, 14-year-old Lu Zixin crouched in a corner of the sofa. Her soaked school uniform clung to her body, shivering from the cold. When she saw me come in, she suddenly stood up. The originally pampered and spoiled young lady temperament had long vanished, replaced by a nearly humble and pleading look. Auntie Jiang. As soon as she spoke, tears fell uncontrollably. Please, I beg you, save my dad. He was beaten by those debt collectors and his legs were broken. Now he can only live in the basement. Aunt Bai and her child ran away with others long ago. And before she left she even took the last of Dad's life-saving money. I sit opposite her, handing her a tissue. My tone calm. Zixin, you're not a child anymore. You should know that from the moment your father decided to give me up and choose Baya, we have already become strangers. But you've raised us for 8 years. She cried hysterically. You used to be the one who hurt me the most. You promised you would send me abroad to study at the best art academy. That was in the past. I cut her off, my eyes cold. The Jianghe who stayed up all night to rush plans for your parents' meetings, who endured and kept silent to take care of your feelings, has already died in last winter's swimming pool. She froze, staring blankly at me, as if trying to understand the meaning of the sentence. This is 5,000 yuan. I took a stack of cash from my bag and placed it on the table. Consider it our 8 years' worth of status. Take it to pay your father's hospital bills, or buy some nutritional supplements for your brother. Do not come to me again in the future. I stood up and walked out of the lounge, and Lu Zixin's heart-wrenching cries followed from behind me. As I stepped out of the building, the late autumn cold wind brushed across my cheeks. I had the driver drive slowly, purposely detouring through that old district that used to press on me with oppression. In the short, damp alley at the mouth of an alleyway, I saw a dispirited silhouette. Lu Changping leaned on a tattered wooden stick as a crutch, struggling to rummage around a trash can. The most prided dignity he once had been completely shattered, his hunched figure aging him to the look of a 70-year-old man. Suddenly, a few swaggering hooligans closed in on him. In the scuffle, he toppled clumsily onto the water-streaked ground, still muttering under his breath, "Don't hit me. I have money. Once my land is demolished, I'll be rich." He wasn't awake yet. He was still dreaming of that emperor of the south suburbs. I avert my gaze and roll up the car window. The car smoothly heads toward the city's most prosperous villa district downtown, where the empire I built with my own hands lies, giving me a truly mine, free, remaining life. Looking back over this year, I did not unleash a hysterical roar, nor did I engage in bloody battles. I simply withdrew my kindness and stepped back from the farce that was never mine to begin with, watching them fall from the clouds into the mire, watching that so-called true love destroy each other in poverty and trivialities. This is the cruelest revenge. I lean against the leather seat, close my eyes, and listen to the radio announcing that Cloud Capital's stock price has reached another high. All the grievances, illness, and despair that once weighed on me have finally transformed into a lingering warmth at my fingertips in this moment. When the blossoms have fallen, a splendid future will reopen for me alone.